What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another episode of the Changeup, the return of the Changeup, as we get ready to look forward to the 2023 Major League Baseball season. With me, as always, is my co-host Bryanna Winner. You can find Bryanna at BWinner12. How you doing today?
I'm good now that I'm no longer in Nebraska.
Yes, I believe last time we went, we kind of signed off. We had kind of warned you it was going to be a minute before we hop back on, and Bryanna is no longer a Nebraskan. She's now a I don't know what the exact. I mean, we called them Zonies. Arizonian, I believe, is what the word is, but she's moved on to Lake Havasu, and as the first thing she said was, it's a lot warmer, right?
Yeah, because it's 60s all week.
There you go. Yeah, and us Southern California and Californians, we don't deal too well with that. I don't know how you dealt with the
Well, to
Nebraska
be fair,
winters.
we haven't had to get much of your rain, so
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know how, but we haven't gotten much of it.
yeah. It seems like in California, you either don't get enough of it or you get too much of it. Can't find the middle ground. But congratulations to you, Bryanna. I know you were excited to get out of Nebraska. No disrespect to Nebraska and the people who love Nebraska, but
It was
Bryanna wanted to
cold.
get closer to home, and it's cold. Yeah, a little bit better for a Californian to be in Arizona than
Well,
Nebraska,
I
but
was I was fine with the cold until a blizzard came through. So
that'll happen. That'll scare any of us away. But plenty to get to. Obviously, a lot of news has broken over the last month or so on the Major League Baseball side of things, mainly on the free agent side of things. We've also seen some very interesting storylines, some rule changes that are going to be taking effect in AAA that essentially are probably coming to the Major League level. And then, of course, we'll also be talking team reports and the World Baseball Classic, which is actually closer than a lot of people think. But with that being said, you have to start with the free agent kind of bonanza. It's been a while since we last spoke, essentially, so we're just going to reset the table. Obviously, Aaron Judge was the big free agent, at least with a bat in his hand. He returns to New York. Jacob DeGrom, the heavily sought after pitcher, formerly of the Mets, he goes to Texas, which I think took a lot of people off guard, and that spurred the Mets to just essentially sign everyone. The Mets went out and tried to bring everyone in. Essentially, we'll get to Carlos Correa in a bit. But I know the first question I want to ask Bryanna, because we'll get to the Angels side of things, but one of the more surprising teams in free agency has been the Cubs for me. Now, if it works, great, but there's some definitely, Eric Hosmer, he's not going to be very good, but you're only paying him 750,000. Like, the Padres are still paying him 30 million plus. But there's some big contracts that they went out and got a hold of. They took a chance, at least I believe they took a chance on a Cody Bellinger, who's really struggled of late. 17.5 million, only 1 year, understand that. But Jamison Talion and Dansby Swanson, a combined 11 years, over 230 million for those two. I'm just wondering what your thoughts, expectations are as kind of a Cubs fan going into next season in what we expected to be a rebuild doesn't seem to be.
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be, and I understand why they grabbed Hosmer, but I don't agree with it. Like from the moment you saw my text, you knew what I was thinking. Um, but I understand that they want somebody like a veteran on the team, like a veteran infielder, but at the same time, he's not going to do much for you. So I think it's still going to take a couple years for them to fully just rebuild, but I don't see this much as a rebuild unless they're grabbing from their like AAA team and
Yeah.
their farm system.
Yeah, and I don't know the prospect side of things for the Cubs, but Cody Bellinger, if he goes out and does well, I mean, there's a lot of guys on this team, signing those 1 year deals. Eric Hosmer is one of them. That if they go out and are halfway decent, maybe at the very least the Cubs can trade them away. But I do wonder if the Cubs maybe got themselves good enough to be the 7th or 8th best team in the National League, which isn't ideal because you want to make the playoffs. Period. It's kind of playoff or bust. At least the way I think the Cubs have to go about it if they're spending all this money. I don't think they're good enough there just yet. Now, another team that was interesting to me, we had the obviously defending World Series champion, and I know Bryanna doesn't want to talk Astros baseball, but one of the biggest moves of the offseason, or I'm sorry, one of the first moves of the offseason was the Astros bringing in Jose Abreu for 3 years, 60 million, and bringing back Michael Brantley. So this is an offense that was really, really good to begin with, and then they bring in Jose Abreu. It's hard to look past the Astros in the American League yet again. It's going to be very interesting in that American League West. DeGrom facing that Houston Astros lineup. But it's the other one as well was Kansas City, Aroldis Chapman. 1 year, 3.7 million. I don't understand why Kansas City goes out and get a closer. You're not good enough to even get a lead late in the game. I don't quite know where you're going there. But Bryanna, you have any other thoughts on the free agencies?
I guess we're just gonna have to see how it plays out as we get closer to the season starting.
Yep. Yeah.
There's not much you can do unless you see like fully what these rosters are going to come to, because you never know. Some of these players that they're signing could be designated for assignment at some point before the start of the season. You don't know. They could be injured before the start of the season for all we know.
Yeah. Moving on to really one of the bigger stories that kind of took over the baseball world was the saga of Carlos Correa. Really rough offseason for the Giants. Obviously, they did bring in some players and they'll feel okay about it, but they had a 24 or 12-hour period where they thought they signed Aaron Judge, thanks to John Heyman, I believe. That didn't materialize, if you will. And then you had Carlos Correa obviously signing with the Mets almost 2 or 3 days after that, and then went 2 or 3 weeks where that contract was in limbo. And at the end of the day, Carlos Correa ends back up in Minnesota. Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the whole situation with Carlos Correa this offseason?
Look, the whole thing was because of his physical, because of his knee that he had to get surgery on at one point. So, I mean, I understand why some teams were just hesitant to sign him, because at one point the Mets were even looking at him. So, and they were ready to sign him, but the physical kind of changed that. So yeah. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough just because from what I've heard, and I don't know if Scott Boras leaked this or what, but he was very confused on the Mets side of things, because the Mets physical actually wasn't the basis apparently for why the Mets didn't want it. What they brought up was the Giants physical. And that's obviously a little odd when you hear the story. The Giants didn't like Carlos Correa's physical and they're not going to sign him. So the Mets go and sign him, or essentially get the contract together. They give him their physical. They don't see anything terrible there, but all of a sudden they look back at the Giants physical and go, you know what? Never mind. We don't want to sign you. That is interesting to me, that would come to that, and why they would, kind of source the Giants physical when their own physical came back all good. So for Carlos Correa, back to Minnesota, nothing more you can really say. And for me as a Padre fan, he went from, now he's in the National League West to, okay, well, at least he's only in the National League, to now kind of being a non-issue if you're a National League team for the Minnesota Twins. But another story that came out this past offseason, or just actually recently, was the reduction in the suspension to Trevor Bauer, essentially making him eligible to play opening day. The Dodgers responded. They DFA'd him, and he has since been released. no real talk. I haven't seen a single article, haven't seen a single even fake Twitter clipping about a team being interested or anything like that. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts overall on the situation, and if we will see Trevor Bauer pitch again in baseball?
I mean, no matter what, he's still getting paid.
Yeah.
The Dodgers still owe him
Yep.
$22.5 million because of the fact that they released him rather than trying to trade him or something. Honestly, I think some teams might become super desperate for pitchers. I am not saying the Angels because I don't want him to go to the Angels. I'm thinking teams like maybe like the Diamondbacks or teams that are just a little lower down in the totem pole might try to get him on their team, but I don't know. I know he wants to play. So I think it's just going to be a matter of, is he willing to take a major pay cut in order to be able to play? Because that's honestly what I think it's going to come down to, is money for him.
Yeah.
If
Well, and
any team wants him.
yeah, well, that's a big one. The PR side of things gets tricky. That everyone knows the story, or if not, you can go find it. We're not going to break it down for you here, but that's where it gets a little sticky. The fact that the Dodgers are paying him, like you said, the 22 million, that's going to help him take a pay cut. Essentially, it's kind of like the Eric Hosmer, right? Like everyone sees, oh, Eric Hosmer is only playing for the Cubs for 750,000, but the Padres are still paying him, I think, 33 million this year. So, he's not missing any meals. What I think will happen, or will kind of need to happen for Trevor Bauer to get back to Major League Baseball, I think he might need to go to Japan and kind of go to Japan and just be a bit of a quote unquote rock star, big fish in a very small pond for a few years. And like you said, a team gets desperate and maybe something else comes out and he does some goodwill tours. I don't know. I'm not a PR guy, but a little bit of time, because I don't think this year we'll see him, just because technically his suspension was all the way through this year. And I know it was reduced, and whether you agree with that or not, I just think there's kind of a unspoken rule maybe between all the owners in Major League Baseball that, hey, we're not going to touch this guy. So-and-so, Uncle Rob did have to cut the suspension down, but we're going to do our part and essentially keep him unofficially suspended. And I think he ends up going to Japan or Korea. And obviously, we would expect him to do really well. And it might work out for him as well, because it would still, it's been almost 2 years, right? Maybe 2.5, because I think he got injured before.
Well, he was the 2020 Cy Young.
Okay. So he got through that small, and then it must have been in the off season. Okay.
So now, no, he did play a couple of games for the Dodgers. I know that. He did play a little bit for the Dodgers. The whole thing happened. But the question's going to be, is he going to be willing to go anywhere that's not Major League Baseball?
Yeah, and I think it would have to be not a desperate move, but a last resort move. I think the agent or someone would have to sit him down and say, look, unless you want to go play for the Savannah Bananas, you're going to have to go to Korea. You're going to have to go to Japan. And I think Trevor Bauer understands that. I think he's a baseball guy. And once again, like you said, it comes back to the money, right? If he wasn't getting paid 22.5 million or whatever it is by the Dodgers, he probably would be a little more desperate or something like that. But he kind of can look and go, look, I'll figure this out. Will he ever pitch in Major League Baseball again? Flip a coin, 50-50. It's very difficult to say from here, but I agree with you. There are desperate teams out there, but I don't know if anyone's ready to take that this year. Maybe next year, but I just think this year it would be, and we could be wrong. I mean, the way the podcast goes, let's be honest, I might hit stop and we'll sign off and we'll get a report that so-and-so signed the Trevor Bauer. So we'll see how it goes. But for myself, I'd say it's about a coin flip going forward if we see Trevor Bauer in Major League Baseball going forward. But if we are going to see Trevor Bauer in Major League Baseball again, it may be the first year of the automated strike zone, as that automated strike zone has made it all the way to now AAA. Every ballpark in AAA has been equipped with the automated strike zone, essentially the robo umps. And you would have to imagine this is coming to a Major League Baseball stadium near you in the very near future, if not next year. One thing also to remember, I had to explain this to somebody, and they're a very smart individual. I'm not putting them down or anything, but they're not robo umps. The ump will still be back there. It will just he'll get a buzz or he'll get shown whatever it is, and he'll make the call there. He's just kind of back there to make the signal. There won't be an actual robot ump back there. As cool as that would be, I don't think it's going to be coming anytime soon. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts? AAA getting the automated strike zone and looking into the future probably very soon for Major League Baseball.
I don't want it to. Just because if at some point the system goes down, either way, you're going to have like people behind there with the strike zone. And look, there have been some really good ones. I know that, I think it was it the World Series where this one umpire did not miss a call?
It was late in the playoffs, and it probably was, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Where like every strike and ball was called correctly.
Mm-hmm.
We need just more of him. We just need more of him, not anybody that obviously is having trouble seeing at this point and has been doing it for so long. You people know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, I don't want it to come to MLB, but at the same time, I think if it's a success in AAA, it probably will.
Yeah.
Maybe within the next couple years. I don't want it to.
I'll do something I don't normally do. And this isn't for an individual or anything, but I'm gonna kind of stick up for the umpires. Because I think maybe 20 years ago it was easier, but I mean, we've seen the evolution of pitchers, right? Everyone's throwing 95 plus, and everyone has movement. I mean, I remember the days of, umpires having a hard time calling Greg Maddux games because of all his movement. Everyone has that type of movement on a 95 plus scale. So it's difficult. We're kind of shown it right in our face, right? Every broadcast you watch, there is literally the automated strike zone right there. I know the hitters have been clamoring for this or saying we need this, blah, blah, blah. I think this is going to negatively affect the hitters because there are a lot of pitches that you just see with the naked eye and you're like, oh, that's a ball. And it clipped the strike zone. And that's the next question, right? What garner, are we talking it clipped the zone, or are we talking majority of the ball in there? There is, I think, a lot of language that needs to be hashed out. And I think the biggest hurdle for the quote unquote robo umps is the unions. Obviously, first and foremost, the umpire unions. Now, this has been a fight that they've probably been fighting for the last 10, 15 years. Let's be honest. And then the players union. I think there are plenty of players that don't want to see this as well. It's the natural progression of things, though. It's hard to literally be shown the strike zone on TV and see if it's a strike in real time and see Angel Hernandez miss 30% of the calls. It's very frustrating. And you're right that I wish we knew his name, right? We know Joe West and Angel Hernandez's name because they're so bad, but we have this umpire who had a perfect game essentially in the World Series, and we don't know his name. Now, partly that's on us as a society. It's just we always find the negatives, but that just kind of shows you like where we are. And even for that one umpire who had that perfect game, I'm sure he's had some where you went, this son of a gun. And it's just the human error of it. I like it, but at the same time, if my team gets eliminated or if something like that eliminates my team, that's frustrating as well. So the way I look at it is like the universal DH in National League. It doesn't matter whether or not I agree with it. It's coming, so accept it. That's where I'm at with it. And if it doesn't, that's cool too. But in 5 years, we will have robo umps in Major League Baseball. I have very little doubt of that. So, but hopefully I'm wrong. And we can keep lambasting Angel Hernandez as long as it doesn't affect our teams. But it's a perfect segue into our teams as we'll step into the winner's circle. Bryanna, some news coming out of coming out of Angel camp. What you got for us?
Well, the first one that I just typed in because I just remembered about it. Trout is saying that his back is not an issue heading into spring training, which I am hoping is the case because we need him. I know that they've already signed a fourth outfielder for opening day as a precaution, but at the same time, I need Trout in there. So what day is it? So last week, the Angels signed Brett Phillips as that fourth outfielder on a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. And then they've also got on December 22nd, Brandon Drury for the infield with on a 2-year, 17 million. And then pitcher Carlos Estevez, which if I've already mentioned this, I apologize. 2-year, $13.5 million. This was December 5th. So obviously they're going for position players as well, but I need them to pick up the slack on pitchers.
Hey, Brett Phillips can toss you a few innings.
Oh,
I'm just messing with you.
No, he was the one that pitched against Rizzo, wasn't he?
No, he's also the one who I believe pitched against Rendon, who hit the home run off him lefty. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it was Brett Phillips. So
okay, yeah, if he pitched against the Angels, they're never letting him live it down.
No,
but he would be a last resort.
Oh yes, 100.
For the love of God, no.
Yeah, you're not in a good spot if Brett Phillips is tossing a few innings for you in a game. I do have a question for you though. You talked about Mike Trout's health, and it's not an issue. We understand that, but it's been an issue. Are you concerned at all with him playing in the World Baseball Classic?
I didn't see him on that roster.
He is?
I didn't see him. He is?
I'm almost positive.
Oh, he is.
Dang. Sorry, I guess I put you on the spot there, and maybe yeah.
Oh, I mean, they've got 5 outfielders. They should be fine.
Because that was my first thought, right? Like, as much as, and we'll talk more in depth in a moment about the World Baseball Classic, but I don't want to sacrifice Mike Trout for 6 months to see him play.
Hey, Bryce Harper was supposed to be on this roster too, and then he pulled out.
And that's what I'm saying.
Because of Tommy John surgery.
Oh, well, okay, yeah, that's right. He's gonna miss. He's missing like regular season as well, I believe. So
yeah. So for the love of God, no.
Hopefully he comes out of that on the other side healthy. I was just wondering your thoughts.
Oh man, I hope so. Same thing with Ohtani, although I'm looking at that Japanese roster and I'm a little scared.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, but once again we'll tackle that subject here momentarily. But
scared of that roster.
Moving on to that's all we got for the winner circle, yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, moving on to the Padres side of things. Obviously, the Padres have been active again in the offseason, just as they were last year. Really making big time splash with bringing in Xander Bogaerts, 11 years, $280 million. Now, obviously, the one thing that really jumps out in that contract is 11 years. That's a lot to give someone who I believe is 28 years old, maybe even a little older. But the way this works out is it's a lower AAV, which is the average annual value. So that's less towards the quote unquote luxury tax. So it kind of spreads this contract out. Do I expect the Padres and Xander Bogaerts to have a very successful 11-year career for every single year? Probably not. I'd say year 6, year 7, we're kind of regretting this contract on the back end. But hopefully we've got 1 or 2 championships because of what he brought to the table. So that's a problem down the road. Robert Suarez is being brought back. He had a really good season for the Padres, 5 years, $46 million. Seth Lugo from the Mets, he signs 2 years, $15 million. I really like this deal. The Padres, you can never have enough pitching, right? Unfortunately, Bryanna can attest to that, but you can never have enough pitching. And Seth Lugo is kind of the antithesis of Nick Martinez. He's going to be that other guy. I think he's going to be someone that can play, be the opener or the follower to Nick Martinez. I think these two guys can work well together. Matt Carpenter had a great second half resurgence with the Yankees. He signs with the Padres, 2 years, 12 million. He's expected to be platooning for the DH along with the boomstick, the ageless wonder, Nelson Cruz. 1 year, $1 million. That is a bargain for a guy who is going to hit 25 to 30 home runs a year on a lineup that is essentially a luxury. For my money right now, the San Diego Padres are the best team in the National League. I think they are the second best team in Major League Baseball behind the Houston Astros. With that being said,
I don't like that sentence right there.
I know. I got to give it to you straight. I got to get they're the defending champs.
I know, but I didn't like that sentence.
I know. Me either. Me either. Trust me. But for the Padres going forward, one of the big positives besides, beating the Dodgers and just having a revitalizing playoff run last year, even though it fell short in the NLCS, it took time off of Tatis's suspension. And look, you can hate him, you can love him, you can ignore it, whatever you want. But April 20th, Fernando Tatis is going to be back in this lineup. And where he'll be playing, that remains up in the air because Xander Bogaerts coming in to play shortstop. He is playing shortstop. I would expect Fernando Tatis to be somewhere in the corner outfield. And hopefully he's been getting his right and left field work in this offseason. And I expect in the next year or two for him to move to center field, because with all due respect to Trent Grisham, you have to hit over 180. I don't care who you are. I don't care what type of center field you do. You have to hit over 180. But going forward, the Padres do have one big elephant in the room, and it's Manny Machado. He is expected to opt out of his contract at the end of the year and test free agency. And what we've seen money-wise, he will be handsomely rewarded. That does concern me. However, that is an October/November problem. And I have faith in AJ Preller to figure it out. And the other news that has kind of come off the heels of that, and Bryanna, earmuff it. I promise you don't want to hear this. The reports that the San Diego Padres are right there with the Los Angeles Dodgers to essentially be the ones bidding heavily on Shohei Ohtani in the offseason. But you know what? At the very least, Bryanna, we will be there to fight for the non-Dodgers. All right. Look, I'd love for him. Well, I'd love for him to come to the Padres, but my second choice would him stay with the Angels. If that can't happen, we know what cannot happen there is Shohei to the Dodgers. That's like Thanos in the sixth Infinity Stone. All right. They'll go like that and we all disappear. So the Padres will be the ones that fight the Dodgers. But hopefully y'all get him signed up, but it doesn't look terribly likely at the moment, but hopefully we don't get there. But my point being, the Manny Machado saga may play out in the offseason, but it could come on the heels of a very interesting free agent run at Shohei Ohtani. But with that being said, that's all I got for the Padres going forward. And it's a nice little segue. We brought up Shohei Ohtani. It'd be really interesting to see not only Shohei Ohtani, but Team Japan really face the defending champs. The U.S. are technically the defending champs. It's been, I think, 6 years because of COVID. It's been pushed back a little bit. But, Japan, U.S., I would say the Dominican Republic, those three teams, I think, are really fighting for it. I know Puerto Rico has a very good lineup as well. I do question their pitching. But, Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the World Baseball Classic? Are you excited for it? Do you not care? And who do you think is going to win?
I'm very scared of Japan. But did you happen to see who the Puerto Rico manager was?
Oh, you know what? Shoot. Is it Yachty, right? Is it Yachty?
Yachty.
Yes,
Yachty.
Thank you. I love it.
They don't have a very big lineup. So if they go down, if there are any injuries at all, it's going to be rough on them.
Yeah.
Although what I have noticed is that there's a lot of players that were born and raised in the US playing for other teams as well. So I've seen some on Great Britain, there's some in Puerto Rico. I don't blame them whatsoever. But Japan is freaking scary because they also have Yu Darvish, and they also have, let's say, a couple of the people that we've been trying to get into certain teams. And then they've also got Seiya Suzuki.
Mm-hmm.
I'm freaking scared. Look, I
Yeah.
have all the faith in the US, but I am scared of that Japan lineup.
Yeah.
Now the question is going to be: is Ohtani going to be playing both sides?
And from what I've heard, yes, but that was early that was essentially when he declared for Team Japan, and that was probably mid-November, early December. So that could change, and I'm sure the Angels would love for him maybe to play DH, and that's it. And you can't really blame him for that. I do think the US has obviously the best lineup probably in baseball, or excuse me, in the World Baseball Classic. My big question is the pitching staff. I'm not totally sold on the pitching staff, that side of it. The Dominican Republic, I think, is the team that I think wins it. If I'm being honest, I think it's going to be a really good battle, depending kind of on how the bracket shakes out. Obviously the US is probably going to have to face either the Dominican Republic or Japan before the final.
Yes.
There.
Well, Dominican Republic, I only see 4 players listed right now on their roster. Honestly, Israel's isn't looking too bad either.
Who you got on Israel?
Kevin Lard, Jock Peterson, Garrett Stubbs, Ryan Lavarnway. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. Dean Kremer, Robert Stock, Jake Fishman, Jake Bird, and Richard Blyer. And Brad Osmus is one of the coaches. Ian Kinsler is the manager.
Very nice.
Ian Kinsler. I don't mind this.
Wow, Brad Osmus is not the manager and Ian Kinsler is? That's interesting to me.
Kevin Youkilis is also a hitting coach.
Hitting coach.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't mind this lineup. I honestly don't mind this.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of the way you're going to have to build these teams, right? I mean, I don't think there's a big, baseball playing population in the country of Israel. So you do kind of have to go, and I'm not sure how it goes. I think it's grandparents.
I can tell you how it goes later when we're off of this.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
I can explain it later.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm excited for the World Baseball Classic. I think the United States is going to be in that fight. But I just think when it's all said and done, there's plenty of opportunity. I'm going Dominican. I just think there are plenty of opportunities. Oh, we'll see.
Don't get me wrong. I love the US and I love the Dominican, but Japan is scary.
There you go. But final thoughts, Bryanna, for this edition of the Changeup.
Well, I did actually see something in regarding the Diamondbacks class high. If my app wants to load at this point.
Yes.
So the Diamondbacks' class high A team is now being led by their first female manager, and I can't get her name up because the app is being stupid with me right now. So, but there's that, and I'm kind of happy for it.
Definitely. It's kind of the what's the word? The narrative we've seen over the last I want to say Kim Na. Is it Kim? Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yes. And the manager is Ronnie Gajownik.
Yeah, I was gonna say I knew I was gonna struggle if I found the last name. I remember seeing the last name being like that's gonna be a tough one. But
and this is for the Hillsboro Hops, and she was their video coordinator in 2021.
Yeah.
And then was a part of the coaching staff for the Diamondbacks AA team last season as well, and was their first base coach. So she's just been going up the ladder, and I'm here for it.
Definitely. I believe she is the highest. That is the highest level. At the moment, we've seen a female manager, and I love
Class A has one too.
Yeah, but this is technicalities, but high A, just a little bit, stepping up. But I think it's starting each offseason. It seems like we're getting 2 or 3 of these stories. I mean, we even had it, and her name escapes me, but I know we talked about it. She made the baseball team for Brown. Olivia Pacheco. I could be completely just making that up out of nowhere. But anyways, so you're seeing it on both sides. Obviously, the coaching ranks, we've seen that Kim Na in the front office and some of the other managers in the lower minors we're starting to build that up now. And then obviously we're seeing some females also playing college baseball as well. So it's great direction for baseball to move in. More the merrier. And I'll be honest with you, I think we all know women are a little bit more logical thinkers than men when it comes to a lot of things. That's why they live longer. But we have more fun. I will say that men have more fun when we're young and stupid. But anyways, with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Changeup presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating, everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.